Hello and welcome to This Week in the Garden. For this week's episode, we're going to talk about harvesting our vegetables and how to store them properly. I think one of the best parts, and probably the reason that you're growing a garden, is so that you can reap the benefits and come out and pick your vegetables. And if you do it properly, they should last for weeks. Now, sometimes we have 24 zucchini or 24 yellow squash, and we don't quite know what to do with them and they start to go bad. And some of that can be avoided if you're harvesting them properly. It seems like an odd thing to say, are you picking your vegetables right? But we'll go over kind of some of the things that might help you get an extra day or two when you're picking your vegetables. The first and probably most obvious is to pick mature fruit. That's vegetables once they've reached that mature stage, and it varies between your plants. For beans, you want beans based off of their width, not on their length, and that's because they can change their sizes based off of how much moisture and sunlight they get. So the best thing to do is make sure that you're picking them once those pods start to widen out where you see the beans developing inside. For squash, on the other hand, they're the opposite, and you want to pick those based off of the length. They can get really thick if they get a lot of rain, and if they don't get rain, they'll be really skinny. But either way, you want to pick them when they get to be a certain length. That way you don't have a lot of seeds. Now, once your plants have matured, you want to come in and pick your plants. I always recommend to use some pruners or a knife to make a nice clean cut. And that does two things. It helps your plants last a little bit longer. It's less trauma on them. But two, it helps to make a nice clean cut on your fruit. And so bacteria and fungi don't get inside and make them squishy and make them rot on your counter. So that's why I always use pruners for mine to make a nice clean cut. When you do that, you want to bring them inside. The best thing to do is to bring them inside. If you can, pick your plants in the morning or pick your vegetables in the morning and bring them inside. That way it's not so hot because heat will help make your plants squishy. So bring them inside if you're picking them in the morning. That's really important for things like sweet corn where they actually have more moisture in the morning, so they're going to be a lot softer, a lot less tough. They're going to be a little bit sweeter. So pick your vegetables in the morning, bring them inside, then wash them off. And for most things, you're going to wash them in cold water. The only exceptions are going to be your tomatoes, your peppers. Both of those will get cold damage if the water is too cold, so just use room temperature water. But you're going to wash them, dry them off, and then put them in the refrigerator or on the counter. Most everything goes in the refrigerator in a vegetable drawer once it's been dried off. The only exceptions are going to be tomatoes, your peppers, and your squash, and then your cucumbers for slicing will last a little bit longer. If you're going to pickle cucumbers, try to pickle them right away. If you don't have that many, then you can put them in the crisper drawer in the refrigerator. The last thing to say is there's a couple plants that you're going to want to remove the blossom on. And that's going to be any of your squashes, your cucumbers, things like that. Those blossoms contain enzymes that will help make them ripen quicker. So remove those, wipe them off with a paper towel, and that's really all you need to do to make sure that you're picking and processing your vegetables. Now, we have more references in an article that I have included in this week's article, so you can check that out if there's a vegetable that I've missed. But with that, we're going to go on, and now we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the reason that we're gardening, and that's recipes. So I think it's important for us to kind of share some recipes that we have. It might be a fun opportunity, especially if you're like me and I'm getting a ton of squash. I don't know what to do with them all. So if you would, send me an email of maybe a family recipe if you're willing to share them, or just a recipe that you enjoy, whether it's from a website or a friend. And I'll put together kind of a recipe book for everybody so that you can have some of these recipes once your vegetables are starting to mature. You can send me an email of all that information. If you've got a picture, great. If not, the recipe is fine. And I'll include them in a little slideshow, a little booklet. And do that over the next 2 weeks, and I'll get those sent out to you. That way we have a lot of recipes for our vegetables. But that's kind of my idea for the next few weeks. If you have any questions or any comments, or if you don't want to share a recipe but you want to just show it to me, that's fine too. But stay tuned. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned next time for This Week